The storm came without warning. Snow swallowing the forest, winds howling like a predator in the night. A loyal husky vanished into the blizzard, leaving his family desperate and afraid. For days, he was gone, lost in the frozen wilderness where even the strongest often don't return. But when rescuers finally found him, he wasn't alone. Beside him lay a helpless creature, one no one ever expected to survive, let alone form a bond with a dog. What they discovered in that storm would change everything, and prove that love knows no boundaries. In the quiet mountains, life for Abby Everett and her aging husky, Rusty, followed a steady rhythm. Each day they traveled the snowy trails together, the old dog's copper coat flashing like fire against the endless white. Rusty was more than just a pet. He was family, a guardian, and a reminder of all the winters Abby had grown up in these woods. Their bond was built on years of loyalty and unspoken trust. Abby loved the silence of the wilderness, the crunch of paws in the snow, the comfort of knowing Rusty was always close. But even the most familiar paths can change in an instant. Storms in the mountains were nothing new, yet this one carried an edge she couldn't quite name. The temperature dropped faster than she had ever felt, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Rusty sensed it first. His ears rose, his body tensed, as if something unseen was calling him. Abby brushed it off at first, unaware that this would be the last time she saw him by her side, for days that felt like forever. What began as an ordinary journey home was about to unravel into a fight for survival, a desperate search, and an encounter that would defy every rule of nature. The storm moved in faster than anyone expected. One moment the forest was quiet, the next it was consumed by wind that screamed through the trees and snow that blinded the path. Abby pulled her scarf tighter, but Rusty was no longer by her side. In a heartbeat, the husky broke free, ears forward, body tense, as if chasing a scent only he could understand. His copper coat vanished into the wall of white, leaving Abby alone in the blizzard. She called his name, her voice swallowed by the storm. Nothing answered. Minutes turned into hours, and fear clawed at her chest. Rusty had never left her before. He was trained, disciplined, loyal to a fault. Something powerful must have pulled him away. Abby stumbled home with the sled, her heart sinking with each step. By the time she reached her grandfather's cabin, snow was piled at the windows, and the night was colder than she could remember. The storm raged for 2 days. Search parties couldn't form. Visibility was near zero. Abby and her grandfather could only wait, staring into the white wilderness, praying that Rusty's instincts would bring him back. But when the skies finally cleared, the silence felt heavier than the storm itself. Abby strapped on snowshoes and set out with her grandfather and their neighbor, combing the forest for tracks. Each step crunched over drifts that swallowed their legs. They called until their voices were hoarse. No sign of him. The wilderness, vast and unforgiving, offered no mercy. On the third evening, just as Abby's hope began to fade, a faint sound cut through the silence. A bark weak but familiar. Her pulse raced. She broke into the trees, following the sound. Rusty was alive, but what she found stopped her cold. Under the shelter of a fallen pine lay the husky, his body curled protectively around something small. It was a bear cub, frail, shivering, its fur matted with snow and dirt. Rusty's eyes met Abby's, weary but determined, as if to say he couldn't leave this creature behind. For 3 days, through the brutal cold, he had stayed, guarding, protecting. The discovery brought relief and confusion. A husky and a bear cub, natural enemies, yet here they were, bound together in the heart of a storm. Abby's grandfather whispered that the cub wouldn't have survived a single night alone. Rusty had made a choice that defied instinct and logic. But storms weren't the only challenge. The cub was weak, injured, and wild. Bringing her home meant danger and uncertainty. Could they care for her without breaking the laws of nature? Could Rusty's bond with her last beyond the storm? Abby didn't know the answers. All she knew was this: their lives had just changed forever, and the hardest part of the story was still to come. The moment Rusty and the cub were carried back to the cabin, the reality of their situation struck like lightning. The husky, once strong and tireless, was weak from hunger and exhaustion. His paws were cracked and bleeding, yet he never moved from the cub's side. And the little bear, she trembled with each breath, her tiny frame pressed against Rusty as though he were the only warmth left in the world. Abby knelt beside them, her hands shaking. She had seen her dog brave countless winters, but never like this. He hadn't simply survived the storm. He had chosen to protect something fragile and wild, risking his own life. Every second of his suffering told the story of those 3 brutal days in the forest. The cabin filled with silence, broken only by the sound of the cub's faint whimper. It was a cry of need, a reminder that without Rusty, she would already be gone. Abby's grandfather whispered what they were all thinking. He gave her everything he had, but the risk was clear. A bear cub didn't belong in a human home, and if her mother had been out there, she would not forgive this bond. Still, as the fire crackled and shadows danced on the walls, the sight before them was undeniable. An old husky and a wounded bear cub, clinging to each other in defiance of nature itself. Rusty lifted his head then, eyes heavy but unwavering. He placed his muzzle over the cub as if sealing a promise. And in that single gesture, Abby realized this wasn't just survival. It was devotion, a choice that crossed every boundary of instinct and fear. The storm outside had ended, but inside the cabin, something far more powerful had begun. A bond that couldn't be explained. A bond that couldn't be broken. As the days turned to weeks, the cub grew stronger. Her limp began to fade, her eyes brighter with each sunrise. And through it all, Rusty remained by her side, guiding, comforting, protecting. What began as a desperate act of survival had become something deeper, an unspoken friendship that defied the wild's harsh rules. But every bond comes with a cost. The cub, whom Abby named Willow, was destined for the wild. She could not remain forever in the safety of their cabin. Letting her go would mean breaking a family they had only just discovered. Yet keeping her would mean denying her the life she was born to live. The day finally came when Willow was carried to a wildlife sanctuary, her new home surrounded by mountains and forest. Rusty pressed against the crate until the very last moment, his nose touching hers through the bars, a silent farewell between 2 souls who should never have met, but did. In time, Willow thrived in her new world, and every spring, she returned to the edge of the forest, sometimes alone, sometimes with cubs of her own, just to remind them she had not forgotten. Rusty's act in the blizzard was more than survival. It was a lesson. In a world where nature often divides predator from prey, his choice proved that compassion knows no boundaries. If a husky and a bear cub can find family in the middle of a storm, what does that say about us? Maybe the lines we think separate us, species, differences, even fear itself, aren't as strong as we believe. Because in the end, love is not limited by instinct or survival. It's what makes survival possible.